Everyone, Mr. Silbaugh here. This is my take on Unit 9, Lesson 8. So in our last lesson, we talked about designing our websites for mobile users. Um, some things that you need to keep in mind when you're designing a website for mobile users, it's not just a matter of making a website. You have to actually consider your mobile users in mind. You can create an app, a mobile website, or a responsive design website. That's what we were talking about in the last lesson about what are your options for mobile users. Do you want to make an app to help them? And we talked about some of the benefits and negatives about that. Do you want to make a mobile website that's strictly just a mobile website? And we also talked about making a responsive design website that kind of adapts to whatever device you're using. And in the end, responsive design is most likely the future of mobile device browsing because it can adjust to whatever screen size that you have. If you go from a desktop or if you have a smaller screen phone, responsive design responds to what the actual size of the screen is. So this lesson is going to talk about optimizing a website for mobile viewing, and the whole goal of this lesson is to talk about the ways that you can take your website and make it so it's more user-friendly for mobile users. And mobile users are a key group of people that most projects will ignore. It's unfortunate because if you look at some of the websites, a lot of the websites you probably go to, some of the more popular ones, they're already made for mobile users, and that's fine. But some of the smaller companies and other pages, not so much. They're not either in that ability to do so, or they haven't made the jump to do mobile design, or they just don't care. You got to accommodate your mobile users, okay? As we said earlier in the lessons, how mobile users in the next few years are going to be, there's going to be a lot of them, okay? And so you need to plan for that. If you think your users will access your website more than regular users, like if you think that your website is going to be accessed more on a mobile device than on a laptop or a computer, it may benefit you to make the mobile website first before you make the actual full website. So that's a good piece of advice, especially for those of you who may decide to do web design professionally. You may start with a mobile website first, and it may get to a point where you don't even design a regular website. You just do it all so that it's accessed by mobile people, and that's an option as well. There are 3 elements. The text lists 3 elements for optimizing a website for mobile users. It is compatibility, design, and size. Compatibility is the most critical. The text emphasizes that it doesn't matter how nice the website looks on a phone. If the user can't access the content, it's useless. Every device is different. So the iPhone differs from an Android phone, and even with all the Androids, the Android phones all differ. There's different sizes, there's different operating systems. So every device is different. You need to test on multiple mobile devices. And you may need to make some accommodations, like one of the biggest issues is Flash. iPhone does not have Flash installed on it. iPhone got rid of the option for it several years ago. So if your website uses Flash, you're leaving out a good chunk of people who won't be able to access parts of your website. So you need to think about what certain devices have and don't have. Design. This is an essential element. Screen space is limited and varied. Some mobile phones have very large screens and others have very small screens. You got to define the size elements in terms of percentages of screen space instead of pixels. This is a good piece of advice. Usually when you design your website, you make sections in pictures and pixels. In this case, you should make it percentages, because when it does that, the percentages take up a certain amount of the screen, and that way you're not losing your elements based on size. It would adapt to the size of the screen more than it would to the size of the like the actual fixed size. Okay, so when you do it in pixels, it's a fixed size, meaning you set how big it is, it won't change. In terms of percentages, it will take up that much amount of space, okay, on the screen. So it's more useful to put it in percentages. Users use their fingers for mobile devices, so you want to avoid hyperlink text that's really small or small buttons, anything where, you know, your mouse on a regular computer is a little bit bigger and you have a little bit more size to manipulate and pick things. Page elements need to be large enough for users to access them. Okay, so that's another thing. They're using their fingers to click on or tap on the different parts of your page. So you want to make sure that they're able to do so easily, otherwise you're going to lose them. Next is size. Large files can slow down the size or the load times of your website. So if you have a rather large images, files, anything of that nature on your web page, it can slow down the actual downloading of the page because, you know, as we all know, using mobile devices, that your amount of bars that you have available is going to vary depending on where you are. So you want to make sure that you think of those people who may not have the greatest of internet connectivity. You want to keep it to a manageable size, especially with media. And one of the things that you can potentially do is use compression and make your videos compressed so that you can store only essential videos and essential things on there. And so you can put compressed media on your website rather than on your full-fledged website. So not done yet. Testing a mobile website, you need to test on as many as mobile devices as possible. I know that could be tricky and costly, but it's important. You would validate your code in HTML5. It was created specifically to help with mobile device users, so that's important as well. And there's a few websites that you can use to test your design for mobile users. They're all listed in the text. I didn't want to list them here. So if you are curious, there's about 4 or 5 of them that you can use that will help you test your mobile website if you do go that route. In conclusion, it's important to consider several factors in making your website mobile friendly. And this is a key demographic you just simply can't ignore, okay? You're not going to want to alienate your mobile device users because they will make up a good chunk of your website, especially if you do web design professionally, and especially if you continue to do this throughout the years. This is going to take off where more people are going to be accessing websites on their mobile devices. So you can't afford to ignore it. All right, that's going to do it for this lesson.